In the schoolyard, two dumb boys were seen beating a student named Jiang Junwoo, while a girl, Sunga, sat in front of them, casually drinking her yogurt. One of the boys who was hitting Junwoo told the other to continue, and the second boy replied that he would go one more round before both of them began hitting him even more. One of them remarked that Junwoo was such a strange boy and pointed out, laughing, that he had already started sprawling on the ground. The other leaned toward Junwoo and, in a taunting way, asked if he wasn't going to get up, telling him that they weren't finished yet, and mocking him by telling him to stay right where he was. Junwoo, who had been enduring the bullying, kept pleading for them to stop, but instead of listening, they continued and went on accusing him. Suddenly, a boy named Hyunshul appeared, calling out to the two bullies and telling them that they could stop there. One of them responded that they were only just getting started and that there was still more to do. Hyunshul told them that lunchtime was almost over and that they could continue once the lunch break ended. Both boys burst out laughing, agreeing with him, and then turned to look at Junwoo while saying that it was true. Junwoo lay there looking completely helpless. Hyunshul glanced at him and said that they would play more with him later when they were done. After saying that, the three boys began walking back toward the school building. One of them asked the others if they wanted to go to the internet cafe after class, and another agreed. Hyunshul laughed and also said he was fine with it. Once they had gone, Sunga stood there watching Junwoo, who remained in the same spot, helpless, with injuries all over his face. She then placed the yogurt bottle in front of him and told him that she hated this yogurt even though it wasn't anything special, yet somehow it tasted good. She said that it never felt like it was over instantly, and instead, whenever she felt like she had just started drinking it, it always made her feel strange. She then asked him if he could feel the same way. He remained seated there, still looking completely shocked and unable to gather his thoughts when she continued speaking to him. She told him that this was exactly that he resembled, saying that he was just like yogurt. She explained to him in a calm but firm voice that even though the feeling might be strange or uncomfortable now, that was how yogurt worked too. She reminded him that they were all already in the second semester of their fourth year, and that if he could somehow endure just a little longer, only one more semester, they would finally graduate. She told him that once they graduated, he would be free from all of this. She asked whether he had ever thought about it that way, and said that he should try to hold on just a bit longer. She added that after graduation, they would no longer see each other anyway, so he only needed to endure until then. After that conversation, Junwoo headed back to the hostel. The hostel was part of a small neighborhood inside the campus where most of the students who lived alone stayed. Inside his room, one of his friends, Heo Youngho, was sitting right in front of his computer screen. Youngho was clicking through several images of different women on the monitor, comparing them one by one and muttering to himself that it might be one woman or maybe another. When Junwoo walked up behind him, he told Youngho that he didn't understand anything he was talking about. Youngho quickly told him to wait for a minute, insisting that there was something important he wanted to show him. He explained that a special type of job existed on campus, a woman who sold yogurt exclusively to the college students who lived alone in that neighborhood. He added that she personally delivered the yogurt by walking around from building to building. Junwoo told him that he had probably picked up some pointless and exaggerated rumors. Youngho firmly insisted, though, that it was real this time. And he said there was a particular rumor about this yogurt lady that everyone kept talking about. While Youngho spoke, Junwoo kept thinking that the rumor about the yogurt lady was just another meaningless story circulating among students. Still, he remembered hearing once that one yogurt lady set aside yogurt specifically for male students who lived alone, which made him pause for a moment. Just as they were talking, someone came up to their door and rang the doorbell, calling out to ask whether anyone was inside. The voice sounded unfamiliar, and the tone suggested it might be someone delivering something. When Junwoo approached the door and opened it, he saw a woman standing outside holding a bag, and it immediately looked like she could be the yogurt delivery lady Youngho was talking about. He greeted her politely, telling her welcome, unable to hide how amused and surprised he was to see her. The woman looked at him with a warm expression and introduced herself by saying that she was the yogurt lady. He told her that yes, he needed the yogurt and thanked her politely, expressing his usual appreciation for her work. She asked him in a calm, routine tone whether he needed just one pack of yogurt that day, and he replied that one pack was right. As he stood there in the doorway, the thought crossed his mind that it had already been 3 full weeks since Miss Sohi had started delivering yogurt to him. She responded with a simple "all right," and leaned slightly toward her bag, saying that she would take it out for him. He watched her as she opened the bag and began searching inside for the yogurt bottle. While she did that, he kept thinking about everything Young-ho had told him earlier. He wondered whether those things could really be true. According to Young-ho, there was a yogurt lady who delivered only to students living alone in the neighborhood. If that rumor had any truth to it, then Miss Sohi might very well be one of those yogurt ladies. And if that was the case, then the stories circulating among the students about the yogurt lady weren't just meaningless gossip. They could be about her. She eventually pulled out the yogurt and handed it to him, saying, "Here it is." As he received it, he continued looking at her with uncertainty, his thoughts tangled between curiosity and embarrassment. He debated with himself in silence, thinking that he should probably ask her directly. Yet at the same time, the idea of asking her felt awkward, especially if she wasn't the person the rumors described. He told himself that it would be embarrassing, but still, a part of him felt that if he didn't ask now, he might keep wondering. While he was lost in thought, she turned slightly and told him that she would get going now. Realizing he was running out of time, he quickly called after her, saying, "Miss Sohi," stopping her before she stepped away. In a hesitant but sincere voice, he asked whether she would like to come inside for a little while. She turned back to him with a surprised expression. He quickly tried to explain himself, telling her that he was always grateful for the deliveries she made, so he wanted to offer her a cup of coffee. He added that there was also something he wanted to ask her, trying to sound casual even though he felt flustered. She continued standing there with a confused look, then told him that it was the end of her shift and she needed to return soon. Hearing that, he asked if that was so, and then, unable to keep himself from it anymore, he mentioned that he had heard from his friend that yogurt ladies provided a certain special service. She looked genuinely startled when she heard him mention the special service, as if the phrase caught her completely off guard. Seeing her reaction, he hurried to explain himself, saying that he meant that he would buy more yogurt, and he asked whether he could request that special service through his order. She stood there frozen for a moment, processing his words, and then finally responded by saying that she thought he must be referring to the new product sampling service. Her explanation surprised him, and before he could make sense of it, she added that she felt bad because the event had already ended the previous week. He stood there in disbelief, thinking that there was no way that was exactly what the rumors had been referring to. She apologized again, saying that she should have told him earlier, but she was always like this, forgetful and late with information. She assured him that if another event came up in the future, she would make sure to come properly prepared next time. At that moment, he realized just how badly he had misunderstood everything and felt that he had completely embarrassed himself. She told him that she would see him next week, and then turned around and headed on her way. After she left, he went back inside the room, grabbed all the yogurt packs he had stored, and began shouting to himself in frustration. He called Heo Young-ho a strange man, saying that Young-ho was truly weird and that he did nothing but spread ridiculous rumors. He complained that he should never listen to that chatterbox again. Standing there, he regretted bringing up the topic at all. The thing that bothered him even more was the fact that he hated yogurt to begin with because it constantly reminded him of someone who used to drink it all the time. If it hadn't been for that woman's persistent visits, he wouldn't have bought yogurt at all. He remembered how, at first, he found the door-to-door sales annoying. He had told her no several times and even insisted that he didn't want to buy anything. But eventually, he found himself getting used to the routine. Sohei would come to his place regularly, asking if he had been doing well and saying that she just wanted to give him one yogurt bottle. And whenever he asked about the prices, she patiently explained them to him. She always came with a bright smile, behaving with such warmth that it never made sense to him. He thought that someone as pure and pretty as her wouldn't be involved in anything physical or inappropriate like the rumors suggested. Still, a small part of him wondered if the rumors were somehow true, whether he would end up doing some cardio training with her, just as the stories described. Returning to the present moment, he jolted awake from his dream, his mind still tangled in the leftover embarrassment and confusion from the memories that had resurfaced. His heartbeat had not fully settled when a sudden knocking sounded at the door. The unexpected noise startled him, and he sat up straight, blinking in confusion. He raised his voice slightly, asking who was there. When he finally opened the door, he was met with a sight that caught him completely off guard. A different yogurt lady stood right in front of him, smiling brightly as if this were a perfectly ordinary visit. She looked at him carefully and asked whether he was a student, her tone polite but clearly practiced. Without waiting long, she asked if he might be interested in applying for yogurt delivery, saying that she could recommend a type that was extremely good for his health. He quickly told her that he was already receiving yogurt deliveries. However, she brushed off his answer with cheerful persistence, telling him that it was perfectly fine to receive more than one delivery service. She mentioned that since he was constantly studying and attending classes, it would actually be beneficial for him to consume plenty of probiotics. Then, leaning slightly closer, as if sharing something confidential, she said she had something particularly good available, and if he signed up, the yogurt lady providing the delivery offered a special service. Hearing that phrase again made him uneasy. He responded by saying he didn't want any free samples and politely asked her to leave. He began to close the door, but she quickly grabbed onto it with one hand, stopping it from closing. She told him not to act that way, insisting that he absolutely wouldn't regret the offer she was making. He repeated himself, trying to sound firm but still polite, saying over and over that he was fine and didn't need anything else. She let out a small exhale as if realizing that simply talking wasn't enough to convince him. With a lowered voice and a knowing expression, she told him that he must not have heard the rumor about the special service yogurt ladies supposedly provided for men who lived alone. Before he could react to her words, she reached out, grabbed his hand, and suddenly placed it against her balloon. The moment his hand touched her arm, a jolt of shock went through him. The yogurt lady began asking him whether the service was something he would naturally be drawn to, speaking as if she already knew the answer. Junwoo listened to her carefully and started to realize that the rumors he had heard were actually true. She went on explaining that students who lived alone received an exclusive discount, where the price dropped from 25,000 to 22,000 won, along with many mileage benefits. As he listened, it finally became clear to him that this woman was the very person everyone had been talking about in those rumors. She then asked him again if he genuinely wanted to register, reminding him in a confident tone that she had already said she would personally make sure he received the service. He looked surprised by the way she spoke so assuredly. She also looked at him with the same calm expression and mentioned that it must be stressful for a student to attend school, study, and take exams, and that having everything taken care of at once would feel like killing two birds with one stone. She added that it felt a little strange for them to continue talking at the doorway, especially because the weather was so hot, and suggested that they should go inside the house to discuss things more comfortably. He responded by saying that it was fine and asked her to come in, and the two of them walked into the house together. Meanwhile, at the park, Romy was sitting alone, looking absorbed in her phone. She complained to herself that she had gone all the way to the liberal arts building, only to realize she had made a mistake because it was actually a holiday. As she scrolled through her phone, she stared at Junwoo's contact, noticing that she had already sent him many messages, yet he had not replied to any of them. She began calling him, mumbling that she should have just phoned him earlier instead of waiting. At the same time, on the other side, Junwoo's phone started ringing, but he was too occupied with the workout session with the yogurt lady to notice it. He picked up the call, and Romy immediately asked him if he could talk at that moment. He replied that he could, asked her if something was wrong. She explained that she had called to question him about his recent actions and to ask whether he was free. She wondered if they could meet, and she reminded him that he hadn't eaten yet. She suggested that they should eat together and told him that she would treat him that day. However, he apologized and said that even though he wanted to go, he was extremely busy at that moment, so he couldn't accompany her. She kept insisting that he should come, saying that they should have gone on a date by now. She added that if he couldn't go right then, they could go later instead. She suggested that they could at least get some drinks that night and that she would even come to his place. But he told her again that he was very busy and said that he would end the call and talk to her later. After apologizing, he hung up. Romy stood there in complete surprise when the call ended. She thought to herself that it was terrible, especially because she had already made her feelings obvious to him. Yet he still wouldn't give her a chance. She felt frustrated, thinking that he was completely idiotic. Romy was actually his junior in college. Later, after he finished the wrestling battle with the yogurt lady, she told him that she had really enjoyed herself that day. She thanked him for applying for the yogurt deliveries and told him that if he ever missed her, he could call her anytime. She said that as long as it was him, he would always be welcome. After saying this, she walked toward the door, said goodbye to him, and he responded while sitting there drinking the yogurt, saying, "Yes, goodbye." She then stepped out of the room and closed the door behind her. After that, he lay down on the bed, thinking about how he had actually had a good workout session that day. He hadn't expected anything since he believed it was only a rumor, but he still couldn't believe that he had just done it with someone he had never imagined doing it with. He thought that this situation was going to be a problem for him because he had impulsively applied for 2 yogurt deliveries. He admitted that he had been looking forward to meeting Miss Sohi, but unfortunately, she hadn't appeared. He wondered whether it would be better for him to cancel one of the deliveries. In the afternoon, Sohei was sitting on a bench, slowly eating a cup of yogurt while trying to cool herself down. She kept thinking that the weather was becoming unbearably hot, much more than she had expected for that time of the year. While she was lost in her thoughts, another yogurt lady suddenly appeared beside her. The woman commented that Sohi was absolutely right, that even though it was still only early summer, the heat had already become this intense. She added that if the temperature was this bad so early in the season, then they were all going to suffer even more later. As she said this, she sat down next to Sohei in a relaxed manner and pulled out a cigarette, lighting it before taking a slow drag. As she exhaled, the yogurt lady casually mentioned that a lot of people who lived alone had started canceling their deliveries recently. Sohei looked at her with surprise, not expecting such news. The woman continued speaking, explaining that competition among the yogurt delivery businesses was extremely fierce these days. She pointed out that it wasn't like the old times when there were only 1 or 2 delivery ladies in an area. Now there were many, and each of them was trying hard to attract customers. She said that if one delivery lady didn't offer extra services or something special, her customers would quickly move on to someone else. She told Sohei that she needed to think about that seriously, especially if she wanted to keep her position secure. After finishing her point, she asked what she thought about the situation. Then the yogurt lady leaned a little closer and lowered her voice, saying that she had a special secret that helped her keep her customers loyal to her for a very long time. She insisted that she could teach Sohi a little bit about it. Even though Sohi came from a different business background, the lady claimed she could still give her some guidance, especially because competition was getting harsh. But Sohi immediately refused. She told the woman that she was managing things well in her own way and that she didn't want to rely on anyone else's methods. After saying this firmly, she stood up from the bench and said that she would get going now. The yogurt lady looked at her and asked whether she was leaving already. Sohi nodded and explained that she still had some deliveries left for the day. As she began to walk away, she politely wished the woman good luck with her work. The yogurt lady responded with the same phrase, but as she did, she muttered under her breath that it was pointless to work hard for hundreds of days, because in the end, she would be the one taking all of Sohi's customers anyway. A few days later, Junwoo arrived at his building. He felt exhausted as he climbed the stairs to his room, thinking about everything he still needed to do. He told himself that he didn't have enough time to properly study for his exams or finish his assignments. Although he had barely submitted them on time, he felt like he hadn't done them well at all. He realized he hadn't even eaten dinner because the stress had left him unable to concentrate or understand anything. He decided that once he got home, he would eat whatever he could find, even if it wasn't much. But as he reached closer to his door, he noticed someone standing in front of it. In his mind, he complained that he would rather drink than eat anyway, and he thought that he might just go out later to have a drink and clear his head. However, when he actually saw who the person was, he froze for a moment. It was Miss Sohi standing right in front of his door. She greeted him and mentioned that this was usually the time he finished school. She told him that she had rung the bell several times, but no one had come to the door. He was standing there, a little hesitant, looking at her and asking the reason she had come at this hour. She replied calmly, saying that she would get straight to the point without wasting any time. After saying that, she handed him a surprisingly large number of yogurt packets. He froze for a moment, completely taken aback by the sheer amount she had brought. She explained that this was the special service she had mentioned to him before. She admitted that she had been thinking about it for some time and realized that perhaps she had not been giving him enough of her service before. As a result, she had decided to bring these extra yogurts as a small token, hoping that he would continue supporting her deliveries. Her tone was polite but firm, showing that she took pride in her work and genuinely wanted his continued trust and support. He hesitated, then quietly told her something that caught her completely off guard. He said that, in fact, he had been meaning to tell her that the next time she came, he would like to cancel his regular yogurt deliveries. The words hit her like a shock, leaving her momentarily speechless. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she asked immediately the reason he wanted to cancel so suddenly, struggling to mask her disbelief. She reminded him gently but firmly that he had been receiving all the deliveries she had made so far without ever complaining or refusing them. He looked at her and explained carefully that the reason was simply that he no longer needed the deliveries. She frowned slightly, her mind racing. She was asking if he was canceling because she had not been providing good enough service, or because he was dissatisfied in some other way. He quickly shook his head, speaking sincerely, and assured her that it wasn't because of her service. He confessed that he actually didn't like yogurt much in general and had been receiving the deliveries out of habit or convenience. He apologized earnestly, expressing regret for any disappointment caused her. For a few moments, she stood there silently, trying to process everything. Then, unexpectedly, she asked him if he wanted to drink a beer. He looked at her in genuine surprise, startled by the sudden change in tone. She smiled faintly and said that she would buy the beer for him, adding casually that she also wanted to have one herself. At night, Sohi and Junwoo went to a bar to have a drinking session, and as soon as they settled in, they began drinking beer together. Sohei remarked that the drink was really great, saying it hit the spot perfectly. She added, with a teasing tone, that perhaps it was because Junwoo was drinking with her that day, implying that his company made the experience better. Junwoo, sitting across from her and observing her cheerful yet slightly unsteady demeanor, asked if she was truly, noting that she seemed pretty drunk already. So he reassured him, smiling and insisting that she was fine. She explained that she didn't think there could be a better day to drink than today, especially since she had been dealing with an unusually difficult day, and drinking like this felt almost necessary. Feeling a bit guilty, Junwoo expressed that he was sorry, explaining that he felt partially responsible for everything that had happened. He mentioned that he had wanted to help her with the deliveries, but circumstances had prevented him from doing so. Sohi, however, calmly told him it was okay. She explained that clients had the freedom to cancel their deliveries whenever they wished, and that it wasn't something she could control. She continued, saying that even if it hadn't been his fault, it was common for deliveries to be canceled from time to time. Then, with a hint of playfulness, Sohi added that it was just a little unfortunate that he had had to cancel his services. She admitted, almost as if confessing, that he was quite her type. Junwoo, completely taken aback by her words, choked slightly on his drink and started coughing. Sohi laughed at his reaction, teasing that it seemed the alcohol was really hitting her. She went on to say that whenever she looked at him, it reminded her of her children, implying that his maturity and demeanor struck her in the way her children would. She expressed that it would be wonderful if her own kids were as responsible and composed as he was. Junwoo, now thoroughly confused, asked her directly if she really had children. She laughed softly, asking if he really thought someone of her age wouldn't have any, and then revealed with a warm chuckle that she had 2 fully grown children. Junwoo, trying to process the revelation, apologized immediately, admitting that she didn't look like someone who had children at all, and that it was very surprising for him to learn this. So he smiled at his reaction, explaining his words that he saw her as youthful, which she found flattering. Junwoo, still astonished, laughed in agreement, thinking again about the fact that she had 2 grown children. It was difficult for him to reconcile the image of her youthful presence with the reality of her motherhood. As their conversation lingered on the topic of age and life experiences, she asked about his age. He mentioned that he would be turning 21 that year. So he complimented him warmly, saying that his mother must be incredibly proud to have such a handsome, considerate, and thoughtful son. She added that it would be wonderful if her own children were as thoughtful and considerate as he was. Junwoo, somewhat bashful, said that it wasn't really like that at all and admitted that he never really listened to his mother. So he laughed gently, remarking that he was clearly being modest and that it wasn't entirely true, but that it was fine, and they could leave it at that. So he then returned the conversation to the earlier topic of the canceled delivery, remarking that it was unfortunate he had had to cancel. She reassured him, saying that their drinking session could balance things out, implying that they could consider it even. She added that she still came to this place frequently, so he should make sure to greet her if they ever saw each other again. As she poured more drink into his glass, she reminded him warmly that he should let her know if he ever wanted any delivery again, because she would always welcome him. He smiled and told her that he would definitely do as she suggested, addressing her politely as Miss Sohi. After their initial conversation, Sohi began to feel dizzy. The sensation grew stronger, and she hurried to the restroom where she started throwing up. Concerned, Junwoo immediately went to her side to check on her, asking if she was really okay. He commented, as he had expected, that she had probably been drinking too much. Sohei stood there looking very pale and faint, apologizing quietly for causing worry. Junwoo reassured her that it was fine and urged her to try to stand up carefully, advising her to wait a bit while he called a taxi for her. He then pulled out his phone, checking something quickly, and asked about her address, presumably to make sure she could get home safely. Sohi, still holding his phone back in her hands, gently refused, saying that she didn't want to go home yet. She expressed that all she wanted was to drink a little more with him. Junwoo, a little surprised but attentive, asked if she was really sure that it was okay for her to continue drinking. After that, he kissed her. Sohi told him firmly that they could not go any further, and, with a gentle but determined push, moved him aside. Junwoo immediately apologized, explaining that he had momentarily acted without thinking in the heat of the moment. Sohei, hearing this, quickly apologized as well, which took him by surprise. She then clarified that despite his actions, he could not do something like that with someone like her at that moment. She emphasized that their current situation had only arisen because they were both drunk, and suggested that it would be best to pretend the incident had never happened. Junwoo nodded in agreement, acknowledging her point. So he stood there for a while, repeatedly apologizing, her voice tinged with embarrassment but also seriousness, as if she wanted to make sure he understood that the boundary was important. Meanwhile, at home, Hyunchul was in the middle of a wrestling battle with a girl when his sister Sunga suddenly entered the room. She told him to stop immediately and demanded that he change into regular clothes. Hyunchul, clearly frustrated and annoyed, reminded her that he had already instructed her not to come in while he was exercising. Sunga ignored his warning entirely, turning back as if his words did not matter. He questioned her, asking if she was really going to ignore him, and she sharply told him to shut up, adding that he should send the girl out immediately because their mother was home. Meanwhile, Junwoo was carefully carrying Sohi toward her home. Upon reaching the front door, he commented on how barely they had managed to make it, and reminded her that they had arrived at her house. He asked her to wake up, his concern evident in his tone. As they drew closer to the door, he asked her for the password to unlock the house. So he quietly told him the password, and Junwoo entered it. As the door clicked open, he asked her gently if she thought she could manage to stand now. As the door swung open, Sunga was standing there, her expression immediately sharp and scolding. She turned to her mother and expressed her frustration, saying that she had come back home completely plastered. She added that she had been somewhat relieved, thinking her mother might not come back at all, and chastised her, questioning how she could call herself a mother. At the same time, she was overreacting, or her thoughts made her mother seem foolish. Then, as her eyes focused, Sunga suddenly noticed Junwoo standing right there and froze, completely shocked. Junwoo, for his part, was equally stunned to see Sunga in front of him. Both of them were caught entirely off guard, frozen for a moment, unable to speak, each processing the unexpected encounter. The next day, Junwoo went to school as usual. While he was sitting in the classroom, one of his friends approached him and asked if he wanted to go to the internet cafe after school. Junwoo responded politely, explaining that he could not join because he had to attend his cram school that day. His friend nodded in understanding, though slightly disappointed, and then asked him whether he was planning to draw the red anime for him. Junwoo quickly replied that he had no intention of drawing anything like that for him, making it clear that it was not something he would do. As they continued their conversation, two people approached them. It was Sunga and Hyunchul. Hyunchul immediately called out to Junwoo, instructing him to follow him for a moment. Curious and slightly confused, Junwoo's friend asked the reason they were doing this, but Hyunchul only said that he would see him later and did not give any further explanation. Junwoo reluctantly went with them. As they walked, Junwoo asked Hyunchul if there was a problem or if something had happened. Hyunchul, who was visibly frustrated and frowning deeply, began speaking sharply. He called Junwoo a weird man and accused him of acting as if he were unaware that Hyunchul had heard some disturbing and inappropriate rumors. Specifically, Hyunchul confronted Junwoo about the rumor that Sununga was supposedly his girlfriend. Hearing this, Junwoo was completely shocked and could hardly believe what he was hearing. Without giving him a chance to respond, Hyunchul grabbed Junwoo by the collar. His voice was intense and threatening as he warned Junwoo not to think of himself as clever or untouchable. He demanded to know the reason Junwoo had come over with his mother, implying that from their recent interactions, it appeared as though they were more than just casual acquaintances. Hyunchul insisted that Junwoo tell the truth if he did not want to get beaten up and pressed him to explain the nature of his relationship with their mother. Junwoo, flustered but determined to be honest, explained firmly that he had no such relationship with her. He clarified that she only came to deliver yogurt to his house and that they simply greeted each other politely, nothing more. Hunchul, however, was not satisfied with this explanation and pressed further, asking about the matter of alcohol. He wanted to know if it was normal for delivery personnel to drink together with their clients. At this point, Junwoo began to lose his temper. He shouted that it was she who had asked him to drink, defending himself and insisting that he had done nothing inappropriate. Hyunchul, now even more furious, accused Junwoo of being insane, saying that their mother had never properly drunk with any of them, yet she had done so with Junwoo. He scolded Junwoo for lying poorly and warned him that their mother was not someone to be taken lightly or deceived. Junwoo shouted back, insisting that things were not at all what Hyunchul was imagining, and that the situation was being misunderstood. The argument was about to escalate further, but Sunga stepped in between them and told them to stop. Hyunchul, annoyed, turned to her and said that she should not have interfered, claiming that Junwoo was lurking around their mother and that it was none of her business. Sunga responded calmly, pointing out that Junwoo himself had clearly said that he did not have any particular relationship with their mother. She argued that, based on his own words, they should believe him. Hyunchul, frustrated and incredulous, called her crazy and asked if she was serious about defending him. Sunga remained firm, explaining that the situation did not make sense if one thought about it properly. She reasoned that it would be highly inappropriate for a mother to be attracted to a man older than herself, making Junwoo's alleged intentions clearly impossible. Finally, Hyunchul decided to let Junwoo go. Still visibly angry, he told him to get lost immediately, saying that even looking at him made him want to hit him. Sunga then instructed Junwoo to follow her. Before leaving, Hyunchul turned back one last time and issued a stern warning that if Junwoo ever tried to lurk around their mother, like he had supposedly done with Sunga in the past, there would be serious consequences. He emphasized that it was none of Junwoo's business to know everything their mother did outside, as long as he stayed out of it. Junwoo complied and left with Sunga. Once they were outside the building, Sunga stopped and stood there, giving him clear directions. She told him that the route she was indicating would lead him to the station and that he should follow it. Her tone was firm, leaving no room for argument, and she instructed him to leave immediately if he understood her instructions. Junwoo was standing there, frozen for a moment, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. He looked at Sunga, trying to understand the reason she had chosen to believe him when so many others had doubted his words. Tentatively, he asked her the reason she trusted him. Sunga looked at him with a sharp, almost exasperated expression and called him an idiot, reminding him that he himself had said that their interaction had only been a simple drinking session. Her tone was both frustrated and matter of fact, making it clear that she thought his question unnecessary. Junwoo stopped her mid-sentence, raising his hands slightly as if to calm the tension. He explained that he was not referring to that situation at all. He clarified that he was talking about the old rumors concerning her from a while back, rumors that had caused a lot of misunderstanding. He insisted earnestly that it had not been him who spread those rumors. Sunga continued to watch him closely. He spoke again, his voice carrying both frustration and desperation. He reminded her that he had told her repeatedly that he was innocent, that it had all been a misunderstanding, yet she had never fully believed him. He acknowledged that it was understandable if Hyunchul and the others did not believe him either, as they had been caught up in the same rumors. He emphasized that those rumors were ultimately inconsequential compared to the truth. He admitted that his main concern now was not to defend himself, but to understand the reason she had believed him despite everything else. Sunga's response was calm but pointed. She told him that it did not matter whether he had spread the rumors or not. Junwoo's eyes widened in shock at her words, and he asked her to clarify her words, clearly struggling to grasp her perspective. She reminded him of the yogurt she had once mentioned, the one she had found strange because it had already been gone by the time she began to enjoy it. She drew a parallel between that experience and the rumors that whether or not he had caused them was irrelevant. The thing that truly mattered was how he had made her feel. Confused, upset, and unsettled, just as the yogurt had left her with a strange feeling despite its absence. She explained that this was the reason she had not intervened when he was beaten up, and her actions had not been influenced by the rumor itself, but by the emotional discomfort it had caused her. Junwoo stood there, completely stunned, as her words began to sink in. A sudden clarity washed over him, and he realized that everything she had said made sense. The realization struck him fully. He finally grasped the truth of the matter and the reasons behind Sunga's behavior, and it hit him with a surprising intensity. The following morning, Sohi woke up in her room, her mind still foggy with the remnants of sleep. She looked around the unfamiliar space, feeling a momentary sense of disorientation, wondering exactly where she was and how she had ended up there. As her thoughts cleared, she remembered the events of the previous night and the drinking session she had shared with Junwoo, and the memories slowly began to come back to her in fragments. Suddenly, Sunga entered the room, her presence immediately commanding attention. She spoke sharply, demanding that her mother tell her the truth right then and there. Sohi was startled by her daughter's sudden appearance and the intensity of her words, and she quickly asked about her words. Without hesitating, Sunga's frustration boiled over, and she began shouting at Sohei, pressing her relentlessly for an explanation about her relationship with Junwoo. Sohi told her that she did not understand Sunga's words. Sunga, in response, asked if Sohi was deaf and insisted that she should explain herself clearly whenever they drank together. Sohi explained that she had only drunk with him on a whim. She elaborated that she had met him while delivering yogurt and had gone to his house the previous night to make the last delivery, but he had said he wanted to cancel it. Feeling guilty, she asked if he would like to drink with her. Sunga listened silently as Sohi spoke. Sohei emphasized that it was just that, but before she could finish her sentence, Sunga interrupted her, saying that she understood the situation and that it was fine since Sohi did not have any particular relationship with that boy. Sohi paused and asked Sunga how she knew Junwoo, questioning whether she already knew him. Sunga revealed that they had gone to high school together and that she, along with Hunchul, used to harass him a lot. Sohi was extremely shocked to hear this. Sunga, noticing her reaction, asked if she wanted her to repeat it. She continued, saying that Sohi's children used to beat up the odd Junwoo and warned her not to get involved with them from now on, as it would not bring any good. She then asked her mother if she had understood everything. Later in the evening, Sohi went to his house wearing her yogurt delivery uniform, and he was very surprised to see her there. So he asked him if he had managed to get home safely the previous night, explaining that she had not even been able to say goodbye because she had been extremely drunk. He responded that he had arrived home safely and, after that, inquired about the reason for her visit. Sohei immediately began apologizing, which caught him off guard even more. She explained that she had heard from Sunga that her children had frequently harassed him, and though she could not possibly comprehend the depth of the difficulty and pain he had experienced because of them, she still wanted to offer her apology as the mother of Hyunchul and Sunga. She emphasized repeatedly that she was truly sorry and deeply regretful. He stood there quietly, struggling to understand the reason she, rather than her children, was the one apologizing. Sohei, sensing his confusion, continued speaking. She acknowledged that he might not be able to forgive her children easily, and that the wounds they caused could not be erased quickly, but she had come specifically to ask whether he could, at least for her sake, show some generosity and forgive them. He remained silent, internally questioning the reason she had come to seek reconciliation with him, when even if her children themselves knelt and begged for forgiveness, it would not change the past. He felt a growing sense of anger within himself. Suddenly he spoke, telling her that he would not cancel the yogurt delivery. So he was visibly surprised by his words. Internally, he felt conflicted, and though he was already irritated that someone other than Sunga and Hyunchul was apologizing to him, the fact that it was Sohi herself intensified his frustration even further. Yet despite this internal conflict, he expressed that he wished to continue receiving the yogurt deliveries and politely asked her to proceed with them as usual. Inwardly, he resolved that he could not simply let the situation go unresolved, even if outwardly he appeared calm. The following day, another yogurt delivery lady, Miss Yunji, arrived at his home. She carefully placed the yogurt in its designated spots and remarked on the oppressive heat, asking whether he did not have an air conditioner and suggesting that he might consider turning it on. He replied casually that he did have an air conditioner, but did not usually feel hot enough to use it. She responded thoughtfully, saying that if that was the case, it could not be helped, though she added that perhaps it was not appropriate to complain about someone else's home, and suggested that they should ideally start the service together. He shook his head and replied that he did not think that would be possible and that he might need to cancel the yogurt delivery entirely. Her reaction was immediate and intense, and she became extremely furious, asking incredulously if he was joking. He assured her firmly that he was not, insisting that he had not wanted the delivery from the very beginning. She shot back, exasperated, telling him that he was being unreasonable, reminding him that she had planned the cardio training because he had signed up for it, and yet he was treating her so disrespectfully. He immediately began apologizing, attempting to calm her anger, but she pressed further, demanding an explanation for the reason he was suddenly cutting the training short and questioning whether he was receiving deliveries from another lady. He clarified carefully that it was not like that at all, explaining that he was dealing with circumstances he could not discuss, and apologized again, suggesting that she should leave for now. In response, she slapped him with such force that he stumbled backwards, lost his balance, and fainted. After regaining his footing, he was taken aback, astonished to see her immediately begin performing the cardio training with him. Yunji mentioned to Junwoo that they should make an effort to meet more often from now on, implying that spending time together regularly would be a good idea. The following day, Junwoo was sitting in the library, lost in thought, his mind wandering until he gradually returned to focus. He realized that Romy had been calling him repeatedly. Slightly flustered, he asked the reason she had been calling so many times. Romy explained patiently that she had been trying to reach him because he seemed completely spaced out and unresponsive. Feeling a little embarrassed, Junwoo immediately apologized for not noticing her calls earlier. Concerned, Romy asked if something bad had happened, pointing out that he seemed unusually dazed and suggesting that there might be a reason behind it. Junwoo reassured her, insisting that nothing serious was wrong and that it was just an ordinary distraction. Nearby, another friend who was quietly observing the interaction chimed in, mentioning that many assignments and exams were approaching, which could be the cause of his distraction. Junwoo nodded in agreement, acknowledging the stress of the upcoming workload. He then excused himself politely, telling them that he would step outside for a short while to get some fresh air. His friend responded supportively, telling him to take a rest and encouraging him to use the break to relax for a bit. With that, Junwoo began to leave the library, walking toward the exit. Romy watched him go, her expression thoughtful. Turning to her other friends, she said that she would also step outside to get some fresh air. Her friend agreed, remarking that there was a lot to do and teasing her to date in moderation. Romy smiled at the comment, acknowledging it lightly, and then left the room. As Romy walked away, one of the friends quietly remarked that they envied Junwoo. Another friend added that a pretty girl like Romy was being very obvious in showing her affection toward him. A third friend agreed, sharing the same sentiment, and wondered the reason Junwoo and Romy were not together yet, considering how clearly she expressed her feelings. Another friend quickly changed the subject, suggesting that they go outside for a smoke, and everyone agreed, leaving the library. Outside, Romy followed Junwoo, trying to catch his attention. She asked if there had been anything troubling him recently, pointing out that he seemed worried or preoccupied. Junwoo explained calmly that it was not anything serious, that he was simply tired from working on assignments, and urged her not to worry. After saying this, he took a sip of his soda. Romy then suggested, somewhat playfully, that they should finish their assignments quickly so that they could hang out together afterwards. She reminded him that after all the work, they deserved a bit of fun, and mentioned that he had been busy the last time they tried to plan something, so today would be the perfect opportunity. Junwoo responded that he would like to do that, but he explained that he was occupied today as well, making it difficult for him to spend time freely. Romy was taken aback by this, surprised that he was busy again. She expressed her frustration, telling him that he was acting strangely. She added that he rarely texted her these days, and whenever they were together, he always seemed to be lost in thought or distracted, which made her feel ignored. She told him that ever since she had confessed her feelings to him last time, she had noticed that he had changed a lot. She explained that normally, when someone receives a confession, they are expected to respond in some way or take action, but he had done nothing at all, which left her feeling confused and frustrated. Junwoo sat there quietly, smiling softly, trying to reassure her, telling her that it was not like she thought. Still, she pressed him further, insisting that he needed to be completely honest with her. She asked him directly whether he liked her or not, her tone a mixture of curiosity and determination. She added that if he truly did not like her, he could say so, and that she would accept it, but she made it clear that even then, she would not give up on him. Her gaze was steady, searching for sincerity in his expression. Junwoo responded calmly, explaining that he had never said anything like that, and he hoped she would understand his perspective. She, however, grew increasingly frustrated, telling him that she could not comprehend the reason he had remained silent all this time. She warned him not to tell her that he liked someone else, as that thought made her uneasy. Junwoo quickly shook his head, assuring her that it was not the case. Then, trying to ease the tension and move forward, he suggested that they should make plans to hang out the following week, emphasizing that they would definitely spend time together then. She called him mean, a mixture of teasing and exasperation in her voice, and even suggested that they could go to a cafe immediately. Junwoo patiently explained that they needed to focus on studying for their upcoming exams first. He then spoke sincerely, telling her that he really liked her and that he was serious about their relationship. He admitted that he had been extremely busy recently, which was the reason he had not been able to show it properly, and suggested that they start spending more time together beginning next week. He asked her if that would be acceptable, and she nodded, agreeing that it was fine. After that, he proposed that they return to the library to continue their assignments, noting that the break they had taken had lasted much longer than expected. He walked off toward the library, leaving her standing there. As she watched him go, a mix of frustration and confusion filled her mind. She thought to herself that it was incredibly annoying. If he truly liked her, she did not understand the reason he was avoiding her. She felt as though she was the only one anxious in their relationship, left wondering the reason he had left her hanging there. The next day, Sohi went to Junwoo's house to make the yogurt delivery. She rang his doorbell repeatedly, a little anxious, until he finally opened the door, visibly surprised to see her standing there. He asked if she had really come already. Sohi greeted him warmly, saying hello, and he responded with a polite greeting of his own, masking his surprise. Curiously, he asked if she had come solely for the yogurt delivery, and she confirmed that she had. She handed him the yogurt, explaining that it was a new product he should try. Junwoo accepted it, thanking her quietly, and for a moment both of them stood there in silence. The air felt awkward between them. Sohei found it difficult to look at him, her thoughts swirling with memories of Sunga and Hunchul. Every glance at him reminded her of that day when she had revealed far too much, exposing emotions she wished she could take back. She felt a deep sense of embarrassment. Gathering herself, she told him to enjoy the yogurt and, silently, promised herself that she would no longer get involved with him. She added that she would be going now. Just as she was about to leave, Junwoo called out to her. He asked if she had any days off, and she paused, surprised at the unexpected question. She asked the reason he wanted to know. Junwoo's response caught her completely off guard, and he said that he wanted to have a meal with her on her day off. Sohei's eyes widened in surprise. He wanted to spend time with her, intentionally, on a day when she was free. His words lingered in her mind, making her skip a beat. Junwoo continued, reminding her that they had shared a drink session last time, and he said that since he had requested the yogurt delivery again, it was perfectly fine for them to meet. Sohei stood there, astonished by the unexpected invitation. Junwoo asked gently if she would be willing to spend that time with him. After a moment, he walked into his bedroom and lay down on his bed, thinking quietly to himself. He reflected that he had finally taken a bold step, shooting his shot, and wondered nervously whether she would mind. His thoughts immediately returned to the lingering presence of Sunga and Hunchul and the warnings they had given him. He recalled their harsh words vividly and how, after all that, he had eventually received a heartfelt and responsible apology from her. The memory made him restless, so he could not sit still any longer. Determined, he thought to himself that this time they needed to take things seriously, to properly address their feelings. He resolved that just as he had been honest and open with her, he would reciprocate the same sincerity, giving his all in return, no matter whatever challenges lay ahead. That night, Sohi lay on her bed, feeling unusually confused and unsettled. She thought to herself that something felt very strange, as if something was wrong with her. Gradually, her mind wandered back to all the conversations she had shared with Junwoo earlier, and she recalled his words vividly. She realized that after hearing him speak, her heart had been racing uncontrollably, her pulse pounding in a way she could not explain. She thought about the fact that he had invited her to spend her day off with him, and she found herself wondering whether she should go and meet him. The thought both excited and unsettled her. She admitted silently to herself that she was completely lost in him, and yet she felt the need to regain some composure. She reminded herself that she was not a young woman, and she was lady with 2 children, and that dating a young man, one who was the same age as her children, was a delicate situation. On top of that, she recalled Sunga's warning not to get involved with Junwoo. Initially, those words had weighed heavily on her mind, but now she found herself dismissing them, telling herself that she could not simply ignore her own feelings. She reflected on everything she had said and done, and recognized that if they continued to maintain this relationship without clarity, it would bring no good to either of them. Firmly, she resolved that she needed to meet him properly, to have an honest conversation about their relationship, and to address things clearly. She told herself that it was time to confront her feelings and the situation directly, to understand whether they could continue without causing pain to either of them. It was clear to her that she could not avoid it any longer. If they were to pursue anything further, it had to be approached sincerely and thoughtfully. The next day, after finishing their workout session with Yunji, Junwoo mentioned that he had to attend his afternoon classes for the next 2 days, so he was going to take a shower. Yunji responded that it was fine and added that she was going to grab some water from the fridge. He hurriedly told her to do whatever she wanted because he was already running late. When she opened the fridge, she was suddenly shocked to see a large amount of yogurt stored inside. She muttered to herself that this was the same yogurt sold by their company, and she wondered how he was still receiving yogurt deliveries. She also admitted she had no idea about the kind of woman who was delivering them to him, and the whole situation made her increasingly curious. On the other side, Hyunchul was sitting with two of his friends, leaning back in his chair as he recounted the entire story about Junwoo and his mother. He explained it from the beginning, describing every detail as if he still couldn't believe it himself. One of his friends started laughing loudly, almost choking on his drink, and asked if the story was actually real, if Junwoo had truly sat down and had a drinking session with Hyunchul's mother. Hyunchul insisted that he wasn't making anything up, telling them again that everything he said was exactly how it had happened. The same friend leaned forward, still amused, and asked whether Junwoo seemed any different after all of this, as if the incident had changed him somehow or left some impact on him. Hyunchul took a slow drag from his cigarette, exhaled, and said that nothing about Junwoo had changed. According to him, Junwoo was still the same idiot he had always been. Another friend joined in with disbelief, saying that someone as weird as Junwoo, even thinking about having a drinking session with Hyunchul's mother, was insane. He joked that Junwoo must be completely out of options if he had no one else left to flirt with. Then he turned to Hyunchul again, asking whether Hyunchul had beaten him up properly after hearing all of this. Hyunchul replied that he would have beaten Junwoo to a pulp without hesitation. But he couldn't do that, not because he didn't want to, but because of someone. As he said this, he turned slightly in his seat and pointed towards Sunga, who had been sitting beside them the whole time. She looked completely uninterested in their conversation at first glance, focused on her phone, a cigarette resting between her fingers, but she was listening. One of the friends scoffed and told Hyunchul that he still should have beaten Junwoo up, reminding him that they weren't talking about just some random person. It was his mother involved, and the situation deserved more anger than he was showing. Still staring at her phone, Sunga finally spoke. She told them not to exaggerate the situation so much and said there was no point in acting recklessly and beating someone without properly thinking. She explained calmly that things weren't the same as before anymore, and they had to look at the matter differently. Her quiet response made one of the friends stare at her with suspicion. He asked if something was wrong with her, saying she seemed too calm and too eager to soften the situation. He then asked directly whether she still had feelings for Junwoo. The other friend continued speaking, saying that he guessed Sunga and Junwoo used to be really close, and that it wasn't surprising people thought she liked Junwoo back then, even when all those rumors were spreading around. His words made the first friend look at him in shock, and he quickly told him to choose his words more carefully. But the second friend didn't stop, and he said that this was exactly the reason he had believed the rumor in the first place. With complete seriousness, he swore he had genuinely thought the two of them had been sleeping together. Hearing that, the first friend immediately snapped at him, telling him to shut up because he was clearly drunk and saying nonsense. But the damage had already been done. Hyunchul, whose irritation had been growing with every passing second, suddenly lost his composure. He threw his soda can forcefully onto the ground, the sharp sound cutting through the tense atmosphere. He glared at his friend and demanded to know if he had a death wish. He growled that the friend was running his mouth just because he could, and warned him that if he didn't start watching his words, he would end up beaten, just like Junwoo had nearly been earlier. The friend, startled and embarrassed by the outburst, lowered his head. His face flushed as he apologized, saying it had only been a stupid joke. He admitted that he was far more drunk than he realized, and that his drunkenness was the only reason such reckless words had slipped out. As the awkward tension settled around them, Sunga stood up, clearly wanting to get away from the situation. She didn't say anything at first and simply began walking toward the door. Hyunchul noticed and hurried to stop her, asking where she was going. She replied that there was no point staying there when the atmosphere had become that unpleasant. She said she would just mind her own business and then walked out, closing the door behind her with a dull thud. Hyunchul remained standing where she had left him, staring at the closed door and muttering that she was crazy. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Junwoo had sent a message to Sohei, asking if she had thought about the situation he had mentioned before, but she still hadn't replied to him. Holding his phone in one hand, he stepped out of the convenience store, his thoughts spinning in uncertainty. He wondered if she might be busy or if she was intentionally avoiding him. She had said she needed time to think, but her silence made him feel increasingly unsure. He felt conflicted, not knowing her answer if she even wanted to give him one. He kept reminding himself that eventually she would have to respond. Even if she tried avoiding him completely, she still delivered yogurt to him regularly, and that would be the only moment when he might get a chance to hear her decision face to face. Lost in his thoughts, he stared down at his phone again, just in time to see a new notification pop up. To his surprise, it was a reply from Sohi. She told him that tomorrow was her day off and asked if they could meet in the evening. For a second, he just froze, unable to believe that she had finally responded. Then his eyes widened, and he almost shouted out loud in excitement, amazed and relieved that she had finally answered him. Sunga was digging through her drawer, pushing aside folded shirts and bits of fabric as irritation slowly grew across her face. She whispered under her breath that the item had definitely been there just yesterday. The more she searched, the more her annoyance built, and she muttered that the whole situation was incredibly frustrating. After pulling everything out and still not finding whatever she wanted, she slammed the drawer shut with a sigh. Unable to contain her frustration, she walked straight into Hunchul's room without knocking. Inside, Hunchul was in the middle of a workout session with a woman, both of them focused on their exercises. But Sunga, fueled by irritation, didn't care about the timing. She looked directly at the woman and asked sharply whether she had gone through her things. Hyunchul frowned immediately, visibly annoyed by the interruption, while the woman blinked in confusion and denied touching anything. Still feeling suspicious, Sunga demanded to know whether she had taken or stolen the clothing item from her room. The woman repeated that she hadn't taken anything and that she would have to be absolutely insane to dig through someone else's room like that. Growing even more exasperated, Sunga declared that she still couldn't find her one-piece dress anywhere. Her tone made it obvious that she was losing patience. Hyunchul, just as frustrated, asked the reason she was even searching for her missing dress in his room of all places. He reminded her sharply that he had already told her not to barge in while he was doing his cardio training. Standing near the door, Sunga shot both of them a warning glare. She told them that if she ever discovered the woman had lied, none of them would be safe from her anger. With that, she turned around, walked out, and slammed the door behind her. Hyunchul stared after her, calling her crazy under his breath. Back in her own room, Sunga began turning things over again, checking every place where the dress could have been. The dress was nowhere to be found. If it wasn't in the drawer, the laundry, or the closet, then where it had gone. Standing still for a moment, a thought suddenly crossed her mind. Perhaps her mother had taken it with her. The possibility made her hold her breath in weary frustration. Meanwhile, Sohi was making her way down the street, walking quietly while adjusting the dress she had borrowed. A short distance away, two boys noticed her and immediately began whispering to each other while pretending not to stare too blatantly. One of them murmured that the woman passing by was incredibly pretty, so much so that his heart nearly skipped a beat the moment he saw her. The second boy nudged him and said that he should just go up to her and ask for her number if he was that impressed. But the first boy hesitated and whispered that he wasn't even sure how old she might be. The second boy studied her for a moment and confidently declared that she looked older than them, maybe even in her 30s. The first boy's eyes widened in disbelief, and he argued that she didn't look that old at all. He said she looked like she was in her late 20s at most, because her features were too youthful for anything beyond that. He added that her age didn't matter to him anyway. If someone looked that beautiful, he would still go and try to get her number. The second boy rolled his eyes and told him to keep dreaming. With someone who looked like that, he said, there was no way she didn't already have a boyfriend or a lover. Sohei heard their whispers clearly, and a wave of embarrassment washed over her. Her steps slowed, and she sighed to herself. She thought that maybe she had overdone things today. She had secretly borrowed Sunga's dress because she didn't have anything suitable to wear, and the fact that she had resorted to sneaking into someone else's room made her feel pathetic. She knew that if Sunga ever found out, she would be absolutely furious. Still, Sohi tried to comfort herself, thinking that it would be fine as long as she returned the dress later without anyone noticing. She was only going to wear it for a little while anyway, and besides, she wasn't planning on meeting him frequently in the future, so just once should be okay. But her thoughts kept spiraling. She grabbed the hem of the dress and wondered again if she had made a huge mistake. Right in the middle of her worries, she suddenly heard someone call her name. She looked up in surprise and saw Junwoo approaching her through the crowd. For a second, she froze, then hurriedly composed herself as he walked over. Junwoo apologized as soon as he reached her, explaining that getting ready had taken him longer than expected. He then asked if she had been waiting for him for a long time. Sohei quickly shook her head and said she hadn't waited that long at all. Trying to distract herself from her nervousness, she mentioned that she had never really been to Hongdae before, and was surprised by how crowded and lively the area was. Junwoo fell quiet for a moment as he looked at her, his expression softening slightly. In his thoughts, he admitted to himself that he had been genuinely curious about what she would look like while wearing normal clothes instead of her uniform. Sohei remarked that there seemed to be a lot of young people around, making the place feel lively and vibrant. He, however, could not take his eyes off her. In his mind, he reflected that she was far more beautiful than he had imagined, and the realization caught him by surprise. It was unsettling in a way. He felt a mix of admiration and concern, realizing he needed to compose himself before his thoughts betrayed him. As he observed her, he spoke, noting that she looked just as young as the other people around them. At the same time, he reminded himself internally not to lose sight of his original intentions, but he couldn't help expressing that her simple outfit looked stunning, and that somehow wearing ordinary clothes made her appear astonishingly youthful. The sight of her like that genuinely surprised him, leaving him momentarily at a loss for words. So he responded with a touch of self-consciousness, saying that no older woman would willingly wear an outfit like that, and somehow she felt it made her look rather foolish. He quickly reassured her, insisting earnestly that he wasn't exaggerating, that in fact, she was the most beautiful woman he had seen walking through Hongdae that day. She blushed and laughed shyly, admitting that his words were making her flustered and asking him to stop teasing her. He looked at her with sincerity and explained that he was not joking in the slightest. He was speaking nothing but the truth. He confessed that every time he saw her waiting there, his heart would race uncontrollably. From a distance earlier, he had noticed an incredibly beautiful woman standing there, which had made him curious about who she could be, only to realize it was Sohei. The intensity of that moment had caused his heart to genuinely pound. She thanked him quietly, still a little shy, and admitted that it had been a very long time since anyone had given her such a compliment. The feeling made her feel awkward and embarrassed, and she apologized for reacting in such a way. He smiled gently at her response, using it as a transition to ask her something that caught her completely off guard. He revealed that going out together that day was, in his view, essentially no different from going on a date. Startled by this suggestion, she froze for a moment, processing his words. He went on to explain that because of this, he felt comfortable calling her Nuna today, something that made her hesitate even more. She protested softly, insisting that she was too old to be addressed in that way. He, however, laughed lightly and insisted that he would call her Nuna regardless, pointing out that she was dressed so beautifully and that she looked so young and elegant that calling her Ahjuma would feel entirely out of place. Reaching out, he gently took her hand and suggested that they first go eat something, asking if there was anything special she felt like having, while making it clear that the choice was entirely hers. Sohi observed him silently for a moment, reflecting on how proactive he always was in situations like this, always taking initiative without hesitation. He continued with a cheerful tone, expressing his hope that they would enjoy the day together, making it sound light and easygoing. As she held his hand, Sohei felt a strange mixture of emotions. Although she had originally intended to meet him to put an end to certain matters, she found herself feeling unusually excited and thrilled. Sohi and Junwoo stepped into the restaurant. They approached a table and began scanning the menu together. Junwoo encouraged her to take her time, suggesting that she look through the options carefully and let him know if there was anything she felt like eating. He added casually, with a friendly smile, that he was treating her today. Junwoo quickly decided on his own choice, saying that he would have the truffle pasta, and then turned to her with a gentle look, asking about the dish she would like to order. Sohi stared down at the menu, feeling completely out of her element. She thought to herself that she didn't understand any of the options at all, the foreign-sounding dishes making her feel both confused and overwhelmed. She told him that she could simply order the same thing as him, wanting to ease her discomfort. Seeing his cheerful and encouraging expression made Sohi feel a mix of relief and embarrassment. He leaned a little closer, his tone curious yet gentle, asking if she was truly serious about leaving the choice entirely to to him. He pointed out that there were more options lower on the menu, such as lobster and steak, wondering if it might be that she didn't particularly like the menu at all. Sohei's cheeks warmed at the attention, and she admitted softly, almost apologetically, that this was, in fact, her first time visiting a restaurant like this. She explained that she was used to simpler dining experiences, places where she could easily understand the food, like local set meal restaurants or small kimbap stores in her neighborhood. Restaurants popular among younger crowds were completely unfamiliar to her. She knew that Junwoo had chosen this place with her in mind, wanting her to enjoy something new. The unfamiliarity of the menu left her feeling awkward and self-conscious. Feeling slightly flustered, she apologized, admitting that the situation was embarrassing for her. She confessed that she didn't want to make a fuss or seem difficult, so she would trust him completely and have whatever he recommended. He suddenly started laughing, a loud and genuine laugh that filled the small space around them. He said that it was incredibly funny, though Sohi couldn't immediately understand the thing that had amused him so much. Noticing her puzzled expression, he explained that it was ironic, though she still struggled to grasp the meaning of his words. He went on, smiling, that judging by how she spoke about the places she had been to, it seemed as if she had traveled all over the world. Yet, in reality, she had only ever gone to the kind of places frequented by older women, the small restaurants and local eateries in her neighborhood. That contrast, he admitted, struck him as so funny. So he blushed slightly and apologized, saying that she really was sorry, explaining that she was just an older Ajuma and that this was her first time visiting such a place. He looked at her with surprise and amusement, remarking that it was the first time he had ever seen her get genuinely flustered and a little angry. She protested lightly, saying that there was nothing wrong with set meal restaurants and that many young people also went to those kinds of places. He teased gently, pointing out that a lot of older people came there as well. She smiled faintly in response, and he couldn't help but comment that she looked incredibly cute. He continued, reflecting on how he had mostly only seen her while she was out making yogurt deliveries. Watching her in a completely different setting, dressed nicely and relaxed, made him feel like he was seeing a new side of her. He compared it to the last time they had gone drinking together, noting that she exuded a charismatic energy that he found captivating. So his face turned a shade redder as she heard him, feeling her heart flutter in that familiar yet slightly unfamiliar way. She realized again how nervous she became around him, how quickly her emotions could be stirred, and she struggled internally to understand these new sensations, the butterflies that left her feeling both excited and unsettled. After they had finished eating, Sohei expressed that she had really enjoyed the food. Junwoo asked her about the taste, wanting to know if it suited her palate. She replied enthusiastically that it had been delicious, and that she was truly thankful to him for letting her experience food like that. He smiled, happy to hear her enjoyment, and said that it pleased him greatly. Encouraged by her response, he suggested they try another menu item together next time, adding that watching her savor the food so happily made him want to keep treating her. Hearing this made Sohi feel noticeably nervous. She thought to herself that she really needed to tell him something important today, feeling a rising sense of urgency. But before she could say anything, he spoke again. He reminded her that since they had finished eating, it was time to move on and properly enjoy themselves. Sohi sat quietly for a moment, feeling the tension of her unspoken words, worried she might not get another chance. Meanwhile, he continued, suggesting that there was a nice pub nearby they could go to, or, if she preferred, they could visit an izakaya. Sohi's mind was in constant turmoil as she tried to remind herself of the words she had to say. Over and over, she thought that she could not remain silent any longer, yet the courage to speak eluded her. She feared that if she didn't confess now, she might never have another opportunity to meet him like this, to truly convey her feelings. Meanwhile, Junwoo seemed preoccupied with his own observations on the phone, commenting casually that the place looked very nice. But Sohei's attention was elsewhere, weighed down by the responsibilities that came with being Sunga and Huntrul's mother. She worried silently that she could not allow herself to be swept away by her own emotions. Then Junwoo suggested that there was a nice pub not too far from their location. Strangely, instead of excitement, Sohi felt a pang of regret, a quiet sense that leaving so soon or going on might make her lose control of her carefully guarded feelings. Tentatively, she spoke, apologizing for her sudden hesitation. Junwoo looked slightly confused as she continued, admitting awkwardly that she should have told him earlier and that she needed to leave now. The words tumbled out that she had to wake up early for work the next morning. Trying to soften the sudden departure, she added a faint, almost unintentional next time. The moment the words left her lips, her heart skipped in shock. She realized immediately that she had said more than she had intended. She thought, internally chastising herself that she wasn't supposed to say that. She should have told him the truth. Junwoo, sensing her hesitation and perhaps understanding the unspoken meaning in her tone, remained quiet for a moment. Then, with a gentle but resigned voice, he said, "There's nothing he can do then." Sohei's chest tightened at the weight of those words. She felt the familiar sting of frustration and helplessness. She knew she did not yet dare to bring it up again. But in that moment, she silently promised herself that she would. She resolved that the next time she came over for the yogurt delivery, she would tell him everything properly, her thoughts, her feelings, everything she had kept hidden. Yet reality quickly shattered all her carefully laid plans. Before she could even act on her resolution, she found herself at his place. She was lying down on the bed, facing him, and her heart nearly stopped. She was completely stunned, thinking that nothing could have prepared her for this moment. She had never imagined that she would hear a confession from Junwoo while lying there, so near him, her heart exposed in ways she wasn't ready for. He looked at her with sincerity, a quiet urgency in his voice that made her chest tighten even more. He told her that he felt he might not have another chance to speak his heart and that he needed to say it now. Then, with complete honesty, he confessed that he liked her. At first, he said he had only been curious, only a little interested, but now he was sure. He wanted to know her, not just the casual, surface-level Sohi he had seen on deliveries, but the real Kang Sohei, the woman behind the smile and composure. His words struck her. Finally, after a quiet pause, he asked her if she would go out with him. Sohi lay there, frozen, utterly stunned. At night, as they went toward Sohei's home, she kept glancing at Junwoo. She told him that he didn't need to see her all the way home, that he could turn back now, if he wanted. But Junwoo insisted otherwise. He reminded her that since she had spent the day with him, it was only natural that he should escort her safely home. Besides, he added casually, her house was nearby, so it wasn't out of his way. Sohei followed him silently, noticing that he seemed quieter than usual, less talkative than the lively mood he had shown earlier. She wondered if he might be annoyed and quickly reassured herself that it was understandable. After all, she had abruptly said she needed to leave while they were still enjoying each other's company. Perhaps, she reflected, she should have stayed a little longer with him. When they finally reached the small street outside her house, he mentioned that they had arrived. Sohei's mind drifted for a moment, and she thought that if they hadn't shared this time together, perhaps they would never have become so comfortable in each other's presence. Stepping closer to her door, she heard him speak again, expressing that he had really enjoyed spending the day with her. She agreed wholeheartedly and thanked him, especially for taking the time to bring her home. Despite the pleasant farewell, Sohi couldn't help but feel a small knot of unease in her chest. Junwoo noticed the tension and asked if something was wrong, gently urging her to speak up if she wanted to share. She shook her head, insisting that it was nothing, and told him she would head inside now, also reminding him to get home safely. He stood for a moment, watching her disappear inside before finally turning back toward his own home. As Sohi entered her house, a shock stopped her in her tracks. There, in the middle of her living room, stood a woman, entirely without clothing. The unexpected sight left Sohi momentarily speechless, and she demanded to know who the woman was, confused and alarmed. The woman, in turn, asked Sohei to identify herself, as if she had come here by mistake. Sohei, trying to regain her composure, replied that she didn't understand that woman's words at all, insisting that if anyone should be asking questions, it was she. At that moment, Hyunchul appeared, stepping into the scene, and he asked his mother the reason she had returned home so early, explaining that he had called the woman over because he assumed Sohei wouldn't be at home. Sohei's patience snapped. She began shouting at both of them, her voice rising with frustration and disbelief. She scolded Hyunchul, saying that this behavior was completely unacceptable and that she had repeatedly told him not to bring girls into the house. The woman froze, clearly astonished, realizing in that moment that she was indeed facing Hyunchul's mother. Her expression shifted from confusion to embarrassment. Meanwhile, Hyunchul tried to calm the tension, telling his mother that there was no reason to make such a fuss. After all, he said, this wasn't the first time he had done something like this. He continued, suggesting that his mother probably didn't have the time to be angry at him right now, given that Sunga was already upset with him for taking her clothes without permission. Hyunchul called Sunga, informing her that he had found her clothes. Shortly afterward, Sunga arrived, and Hyunchul explained somewhat humorously that their mother had been acting as a hanger for her clothes. Sunga's expression immediately turned frustrated. She scolded him, reminding him that she hated it when anyone touched her clothing, and that, because of him, she had spent a long time searching for the missing items. Meanwhile, Hyunchul and the woman quietly retreated into another room, leaving Sohi and Sunga to deal with the tension. Sohei immediately tried to apologize to Sunga, explaining that she had been meeting someone that day and hadn't had any other clothes to wear. She admitted that she knew she shouldn't have taken Sunga's garments, but it had been the only option she had, and she truly couldn't help herself. She added earnestly that she was very sorry and promised to wash the clothes and return them exactly where they belonged. Sunga, however, was incensed. She shouted that Sohei should not bother returning them at all and that she should throw the clothes out immediately. Sohei was completely shocked by this harsh reaction. Sunga repeated herself, growing even more agitated, making it clear that she was disgusted and demanding that the clothes be thrown away at once. Meanwhile, Hyunchul and the woman were carrying out their cardio exercises in the other room, their movements echoing faintly through the walls. Sohei, trying to calm the situation, told Sunga that there was no reason to feel disgusted, as she had only worn the clothes briefly. But Sunga's frustration only intensified. She demanded to know for whom Sohi had worn the clothes, speculating sharply that it must have been one of the men from the yogurt delivery service. Sunga's tone grew harsher as she suggested there might have been more than one man involved, and angrily remarked that she could never wear clothes that Sohi had previously used. She emphasized she was not foolish enough to take the garments after someone else had worn them. At this point, Sohi's own temper flared. She scolded Sunga for being unreasonable and questioned whether Sunga had been paying attention to whatever Hyunchul and the woman were doing. Sohi pointed out the larger issue, that Sunga often brought delinquents over to smoke and drink, and on top of that, Hyunchul brought women into the house without concern for whether Sohi was home. Her voice carried a mix of frustration. Sohi continued speaking, her voice trembling as she said that she was always the one who cleaned up the mess in the house and that it felt like everything was left for her alone to handle. She insisted that they seemed to believe she had nothing to say, as if her feelings didn't matter. Inside his room, Hyunchul was thinking quietly to himself that their mother was extremely angry, more than usual. Sohi's frustration finally poured out as she declared that she had dealt with enough already, but she could no longer continue like this. She said she was sick of the family and that she no longer wanted to endure the humiliation she constantly received from both of them. Sunga responded coldly, telling her that if she felt that sick of them, then she could simply leave. She added that there was no need for them to live together if Sohi felt that way, and that separating would probably be better for all of them. She confessed that she had wanted that for a long time anyway, and said she could not live with someone she considered a thief. Hearing that, Sohi finally realized that she had reached her limit. She couldn't handle the situation anymore. Feeling like something inside her had finally broken, she walked out of the house, her steps quick and shaky. Once outside, she stopped, her emotions overwhelming her, and she began sobbing, tears spilling uncontrollably as she thought to herself that she couldn't understand the reason such things were happening to her. She felt she hadn't done anything wrong enough to deserve this kind of treatment. While she cried outside, Junwoo suddenly appeared. He noticed her and asked the reason she was out there at that hour, confused and concerned. Without hesitation, she moved toward him and embraced him tightly, tears filling her eyes. She told him that she had wanted to endure everything because she was still their mother and they were still her children, but she couldn't do it anymore. She was truly sick of everything they were putting her through. Junwoo stood there quietly, holding her, and in his mind, he was telling her not to apologize. He felt a strange sense of relief because, in that moment, seeing her vulnerable and leaning on him, he believed that as long as she was like this, he might finally have a chance to be closer to her. Sohei and Junwoo stepped into the club, immediately immersed in the vibrant energy of the place. All around them, people were dancing, laughing, and enjoying the music, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement and color. Sohei held a glass in her hand, standing still for a moment as she took in the scene, and she thought to herself how overwhelmingly loud it was. She questioned whether coming here had really been a good idea. Junwoo quietly approached her from behind and suggested that she stay closer to him. He explained in a calm tone that being alone in such a crowded and energetic environment could make it easy for other men to approach or bother her. Sohei responded politely, sending him a small thank, her tone carrying a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. He then looked at her with concern and asked if she truly felt okay about staying any longer. He observed that she already seemed noticeably drunk. and he expressed his honest thoughts about the reason he had brought her there. He reminded her that she had wanted to experience a club at least once, while admitting that he personally did not enjoy such noisy, chaotic places. He also commented on how intense the environment felt, noting that the volume and crowd made it difficult to stand comfortably, and even suggested, half in jest and half seriously, that perhaps they should have just left. Sohi, however, insisted that she wanted to linger a little longer. She explained that her curiosity about these types of places had drawn her in, and inwardly she reflected on how experiencing this environment might help her understand her kids better, perhaps by seeing the kind of spaces they might find themselves in, or by connecting with a younger social energy she rarely encountered. Junwoo considered her words and finally agreed, though he did so with a hint of reluctance. He told her to follow him, moving carefully through the crowd to ensure she stayed close. He then suggested that if they were going to enjoy themselves, they should have a drink, offering to treat her. He also made a gentle but firm request that she hold onto his hand, warning her that it would be very difficult to locate her in the throng if she let go. Sohi nodded in agreement, accepting his guidance. Together, they approached the bar, where Junwoo ordered 2 highballs from the bartender. Sohi picked up her highball and began drinking. Junwoo watched her quietly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He remarked that she could still drink even while drunk, curiosity and amusement in his tone, and then asked if she was always able to handle alcohol this well. She looked at her glass thoughtfully and admitted that she had expected the drink to taste like soju because it was clear, but was surprised to find it much sweeter than she had anticipated. And she smiled lightly and added that she liked it. Junwoo laughed softly at her reaction and warned her to be careful, teasing that she might get drunk far faster than she realized. Sohi, slightly skeptical, asked if he was serious, noting that the drink didn't seem strong at all, though she acknowledged she needed to be cautious. Junwoo shifted the topic gently, asking if she planned to go home tonight. She hesitated and admitted that probably she would not, reasoning that even if she did, nothing particularly good would come of it. He then asked whether she had a place in mind to sleep, which immediately flustered and embarrassed her. She hesitated, her cheeks warming, and admitted that she really wasn't sure. Before Junwoo could respond, Romy suddenly appeared from behind, shouting at him in a loud, sharp voice. He jumped, startled, and turned to see her. He asked incredulously how she could have come to a place like this. Romy scolded him for being so inconsiderate, saying it was unfair to come to a club without informing her. Her words caught both of them off guard, and her eyes flicked toward the woman standing behind him. Romy asked about her presence, but Junwoo waved him off, insisting that she could not possibly understand because she was drunk. Sohi, curious and slightly uneasy, asked Junwoo who Romy was. He explained carefully, apologizing for the confusion, and said that Romy was speaking differently than usual because she was extremely drunk. He clarified that she was a dongsang from college and merely a close friend. Just then, Romy leaned closer to Junwoo, wrapping her arm around his, and declared to Sohi, in no uncertain terms, that she was Junwoo's girlfriend. Sohi froze, completely taken aback by the revelation. Romy continued, explaining that they had just started dating and that their bond was very close. Junwoo himself looked shocked, struggling to process the sudden intensity of the moment. Romy then turned towards Sohi and asked pointedly whether she was his friend. Sohi, choosing her words carefully, replied that she only happened to know him and that there was no special relationship between them. She offered a sincere apology to Romy for any misunderstanding she may have caused and added that she would leave now, promising to see them another time. Junwoo tried to stop her, standing in her path and urging her not to go, but Sohi ignored him and walked away gracefully, keeping her composure despite the tension. After Sohi left, Romy pressed closer to Junwoo and kissed him, the gesture both affectionate and possessive. She explained that she had been dragged to the club for a friend's birthday and had felt terrified being there alone, implying that his presence would have been reassuring. Her voice softened as she suggested that it would have been better if he had stayed with her. Then, with a sharp edge, she asked whether the other woman was somehow more important to him, warning him not to deny having feelings for someone else. Junwoo stood froze there. Sohi moved to another corner of the club and sat down, trying to gather her thoughts and escape the overwhelming noise. From across the room, 2 boys had noticed her and were watching her intently, leaning toward each other to whisper. One of them asked the other if he was really certain about his thoughts, seeking reassurance. The other replied confidently, explaining that although he had been unsure at first, now that they were close enough, he was certain. The first boy responded with a hint of envy, saying that he wished he could live in the same neighborhood, noting that the yogurt delivery lady was far more beautiful than many of the 20-year-olds around them at the club. His friend agreed, adding that he might try to approach her when she came for a delivery, speculating that this was probably the reason she was at the club in the first place. The first boy then raised a concern, asking how much she had drunk and whether his friend had added anything unusual to her drink. The party in the club continued at full pace, with music thumping, lights flashing, and everyone around them dancing and laughing, fully absorbed in the energetic atmosphere. In a more secluded, unauthorized room where entry was strictly prohibited, Junwoo and Romy were caught up in a wrestling battle. Junwoo's mind raced as he realized he had made a mistake. He had run off to a quiet place, like thinking he could get a moment to himself. But Romy had unexpectedly kissed him, and now things had escalated even further. He couldn't help but think that trying to escape had only made the situation worse. Meanwhile, across the club, two boys had cornered Sohi and dragged her to a more isolated part of the room. They had removed all of her clothes. One of them leaned in, apparently about to kiss her, their intentions clear and unsettling. Suddenly, the door to the secluded room swung open with force, and Junwoo appeared, his expression stormy and his voice filled with anger. He demanded harshly, almost shouting, demanding to know about his identity. Junwoo remembered clearly that the very first time he had met Romy was at the start of the semester. Back then, everything had felt new and unfamiliar, yet she had quickly become the closest female friend he had on campus. They had grown comfortable around each other so easily that they were almost always seen together. From the moment they met, he had sensed that she might have feelings for him. She often showed a warmth and affection that hinted at something deeper, but he had only ever regarded her as a close dongsang, someone precious but never in a romantic sense. Even so, he kept reminding himself that he had agreed to do cardio training with her that day. When they began the session, the atmosphere felt slightly tense. In the middle of the training, something in him froze, and saying that they cannot continue like that, he abruptly stopped and stepped out of the room without offering her any explanation. Romy remained inside, and as soon as he left, her composure crumbled. She stayed seated, her shoulders shaking as she began crying silently. She muttered that she had opened her heart to him, confessed her feelings, and even allowed him into her personal space by training together. Yet he was treating her in such an inconsiderate way. But instead of giving up, she stubbornly insisted to herself that no matter how complicated things were, she would make sure that one day he would be hers. Meanwhile, Junwoo walked back toward the part of the building where the party was still going on. Music was loud, lights were flashing, and people were laughing, but he couldn't focus on any of it. His mind was filled only with one person, so he moved through the crowd searching for her everywhere, but she was nowhere to be seen. The realization made his chest tighten. He regretted not stopping her earlier when she had tried to leave. He thought that if he hadn't hesitated at that moment, he might not have lost his chance. As he stood there, lost in frustration and worry, he suddenly overheard a man behind him talking on the phone. The stranger's tone was casual, almost proud, as he told someone that he had dragged a woman upstairs and that the other person should come to the room quickly. The man continued, laughing lightly, calling the woman unbelievably beautiful and even referring to her as an Juma, then adding that she looked prettier than most women in their 20s. He joked that if the other person refused to come soon, he would simply go to her himself and spend some time with her. Each word struck Junwoo like a blow. Without thinking twice, he followed the man to reach Sohi. After some time had passed, Sohi slowly regained consciousness. Her mind felt hazy, and she wondered if she had simply fallen asleep. She noticed the echo of loud noises and thought that people were fighting nearby. Her head throbbed as she struggled to open her eyes, but the moment her vision cleared, she saw something she had not expected. Junwoo was in the room, violently fighting the two boys who had brought her there. The boys scrambled for excuses, insisting that he should believe them because they had not actually done anything to her except remove her clothes. They begged him not to report them to the authorities, but Junwoo's expression was one of pure rage. His voice was sharp as he warned them to get out before he killed them. Terrified, both boys bolted out of the room without looking back. When the room finally fell silent, Junwoo rushed to Sohi and demanded to know the reason she had been so careless. His voice trembled with anger and fear as he told her she could have ended up in real danger. Sohi sat there with her head down, overcome with embarrassment and guilt. She apologized softly, admitting that she didn't fully understand what would have happened and that she had only left earlier because she thought she would be a nuisance to him. She hadn't imagined that something like this would happen. She apologized again, her voice cracking. Without giving her time to spiral further, he suddenly pulled her into a tight embrace. He told her that, regardless of everything that had happened, he was simply relieved that she was safe. He confessed that he had been terrified that something terrible might have happened to her. Hearing this, Sohi broke down into tears, sobbing uncontrollably as all the fear and confusion from earlier rushed back to her. Eventually, everything around them blurred together, and the next thing she knew, she had ended up at Junwoo's place. Now, in the present moment, lying on the bed in his house, every memory of the incident replayed in her mind like a vivid flashback. Junwoo lay nearby and gently asked if she wanted to go out with him. The question echoed strangely in her ears. She thought about how she had never expected to hear any kind of confession from him, especially after everything that had happened. She had been so shocked earlier that she didn't even know how she was supposed to respond. But as the silence stretched between them, the tension softened. Both of them moved instinctively, and in the next moment, they kissed each other. She kept trying to stop him, but he continued insisting, saying that he genuinely wanted to have a wrestling battle with her. He even asked her whether she felt respected and loved as a person in that moment, trying to reassure her. His question made all the harsh words her children had said in the past rise up in her mind again, echoing painfully. She found herself thinking that she was someone who might never be loved by anyone again. But he told her that he was different, that he wanted her, and that his feelings were not like everyone else's. Hearing this made her chest tighten with confusion and disbelief. After a moment, the tension between them softened, and eventually, the two of them began the workout session together. Yunji was standing outside his apartment, lingering for a moment as she tried to make sense of the faint sounds drifting from inside. She kept thinking that she could clearly hear something happening in there, even though she had only come for the delivery. It crossed her mind that it had been quite a long time since she had managed to suppress her own desires. Yet now she found herself realizing that he seemed to be enjoying his time with another woman. The thought made her wonder which one of the yogurt ladies it might be, and her curiosity slowly grew stronger as she stood there, unable to stop imagining the possibilities. Meanwhile, in the morning, Sohi woke up and found herself looking around at a place she couldn't recognize. For a moment, she felt completely lost, thinking about where she could be. Then, as her mind cleared, she suddenly remembered the events from the previous night and realized exactly where she was and with whom. A moment later, Junwoo came over to her, asking gently if she had woken up. He mentioned that she seemed to have gotten up earlier than he expected and told her that she could sleep a bit longer if she wanted to. She reminded herself silently that it made sense. After all, they had ended up having cardio training with him the night before. Junwoo then asked if she felt hungry after waking up and suggested that they should have some warm soup together, thinking it might help both of them recover from the hangover lingering from the previous night. She sat there quietly, completely lost in her thoughts, as a heavy sense of dread settled over her. She kept thinking that if her children ever discovered everything that had happened, they would curse her without hesitation. She imagined them throwing harsh, painful words at her, words she knew she would have no strength to defend herself against. The thought circled in her mind again and again that once Sunga and Hyunchul found out that she had ended up doing that kind of training with Junwoo, someone who was not only much younger but also their own classmate, everything would collapse around her. She felt that the situation would turn disastrous for her future, her dignity, and everything she had tried to uphold as their mother. While she remained trapped in her anxious spiral, Junwoo stood in front of her, noticing how distant and disconnected she seemed. He kept calling her name repeatedly, trying to pull her back to the moment. He asked her several times if something was wrong and whether she felt unwell, his voice filled with concern. When she finally lifted her gaze to him, her expression revealed deep embarrassment and confusion. She began to think bitterly that she must have been far too drunk the previous night to let things go so far. She silently scolded herself for acting impulsively at her age. The shame washed over her as she thought that she had allowed herself to make a mistake. No, an even bigger mistake than any she had made before. She kept telling herself that if she had just regained her senses a little earlier, if she had been more careful, none of this would have happened. Eventually, she apologized, her voice filled with hesitation and remorse. She said that even though it felt shameless to admit it, the best solution for both of them would be to pretend that nothing had happened the previous night, to erase everything as if it never occurred. Upon hearing this, he looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and frustration. He asked her if she was really planning to run away from the situation in such a cowardly manner after they had shared. His words startled her, leaving her confused and unsure of how to respond. Before she could gather her thoughts, he continued speaking, telling her that blaming everything on drinking too much or claiming she had been out of her mind were nothing more than excuses she was hiding behind. He reminded her that he had witnessed the entire night clearly, that she had not been forced or confused, and that she had genuinely seemed happy while spending that time with him, especially during the cardio training. He asked her if she truly dared to deny all of that now and pretend she had not felt anything at all. His frustration grew as he asked whether she wanted to insist that she had been insincere throughout the entire moment. She hesitated, unable to form a proper answer, feeling cornered by the truth in his words. Seeing her silence, he gently but firmly cut her off, saying that it was enough. He told her that everything she was saying now only showed that she was trying to reject the emotions they had experienced together. He made it clear that it wasn't fair for her to act as if he had been the only one who was sincere, because they both knew she hadn't been the only one feeling something real. After saying all that, he went on to tell her that perhaps it would be better to stop everything and that she shouldn't receive him anymore. Yet he added that no matter how much she tried to reject it, she already knew deep down that she had fallen for him. He admitted that from that moment on, he would be more assertive in expressing his feelings because he genuinely liked her and wanted her to know it. Sohi sat there, her thoughts a whirlwind, feeling her head grow heavy with confusion. She couldn't stop replaying everything that had happened that morning. The intensity of their conversation, the closeness they had shared, and the sheer honesty of his words left her feeling lost. She had no idea how she was supposed to face him from now on, nor how she could reconcile the emotions stirring inside her. After breakfast, they stepped outside together. The morning air was crisp, but it did little to calm her racing thoughts. As they walked, she hesitated and finally asked if they could stop there, insisting that she could go the rest of the way on her own. He looked at her with a mixture of confusion and insistence, telling her that he didn't understand her words. He said that he needed to take her home, reminding her that they were already very close to her place and that he could at least accompany her to her doorstep. She stood silently for a moment, trying to sort through the mess of emotions inside her. Guilt and worry gnawed at her, and she worried that if things continued this way, her children would be even more furious with her. She imagined their harsh words and disappointed expressions, and the thought made her chest tighten. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, Sunga appeared suddenly in front of them, her expression sharp and frustrated. She demanded to know the reason her mother was there and the reason they were together at that moment. Her voice rose with urgency, almost accusing, as she sought an explanation that she clearly didn't trust she would receive. Sohi stepped forward quickly, hoping to calm her daughter, and told her that their mother would explain everything. She explained that, as Sunga already knew, she had gone to deliver yogurt to him, which was the reason they had unexpectedly run into each other in the neighborhood that morning. Before the explanation could fully take effect, he interrupted, his voice calm but unwavering. He stated that they had all been together the previous night. Sunga froze, completely shocked, her face draining of color as she tried to comprehend his words. He continued, repeating firmly that if she wanted, he could say it again, and he had been with her mother overnight, and there was nothing wrong with that. He added that whether Sohi had chosen to stay with him or not, they were very close, and it wasn't something for her to be furious about. He then asked pointedly if her anger was because there was no one at home to cook or take care of her, reminding her that she had herself chased her mother out in the first place. He questioned the reason she was making such a fuss, pointing out that she was partly responsible for the situation. Sunga, completely overwhelmed and boiling with frustration, could barely contain herself. She shouted at him, demanding whether he had lost his mind and the reason he would say such things so openly. After some time, they finally reached home, and Sunga immediately retreated into her room, locking the door behind her. Hyunchul, who had been engaged in cardio training with a woman in another room, suddenly became aware of a commotion. He heard his mother, Sohi, forcefully knocking on Sunga's door and urgently asking her to open it. The sound of her voice, filled with a mixture of frustration and concern, made him pause his training. Deciding to see the situation that was happening, he stepped out of the room only to find Sohi standing just outside Sunga's door. She was imploring her daughter to listen to her, to take a moment and just talk things out. Her words were soft yet insistent as she repeatedly asked if Sunga was even paying attention, while her tears streaked down her face. Sohi's hands continued to pound on the door, each knock echoing her bewilderment, as she admitted aloud that she could not understand how things had escalated to this point. Hyunchul, standing a few steps behind, observed the scene quietly, trying to piece together whatever could have happened to provoke such a dramatic response. His mind raced, questioning the situation and wondering what might have caused Sunga to react in such a way. Meanwhile, Yunji had arrived outside Junwoo's house. She knocked on the door and rang the bell, calling out to see if anyone was home. Announcing that she had come to deliver yogurt, she called Junwoo's name repeatedly, but no one responded. Standing there, she tried to rationalize the situation, thinking to herself that perhaps he truly was not home. She had planned to ask him a few important questions, and his absence left her feeling both frustrated and annoyed. More than anything, she had hoped to perform a workout session with him, and the thought of missing that opportunity made her irritation even sharper. Frustrated, she muttered under her breath, noting with a mix of exasperation and disbelief that yet another unusual woman seemed to have latched onto him. She felt that he could have just handled the situation with her instead, which would have been far simpler. After a while, Yunji moved into the bathroom, determined to work on strengthening her finger muscles. Sitting there, she allowed herself a moment to vent her anger quietly, cursing Junwoo under her breath. In her mind, she resolved that when the time came, she would stick to him like a persistent parasite, making sure he understood her frustration fully. She envisioned holding him accountable, scolding him, and giving him a piece of her mind for an entire day. After stepping out of the bathroom, Yunji was surprised to find another yogurt delivery lady standing right outside. The woman greeted her politely, wishing her a good day. Yunji returned the greeting and casually asked how her work had been going. The delivery lady responded with a tired smile, explaining that the job had always been difficult. She then asked how things were going at the company where Yunji worked, referring to it as Madam's company. Yunji replied that the situation there was no different, that naturally, things were challenging everywhere when all the companies were competing against one another. The other woman nodded in agreement and explained that this was exactly the reason she herself had been posting flyers around the neighborhood to promote their business. She added that one of their employees delivered exclusively to a single customer, which left them short-staffed in the promotion area and made everything even harder. Hearing that, Yunji froze for a moment, caught off guard. She asked the woman to repeat her words, specifically whether there was truly only one employee delivering for the Ajuma's yogurt company. She then asked her to wait a moment, taking the stack of flyers from her hands and scanning through them. The delivery lady nodded and let her look. As Yunji examined the flyer, she began to laugh in disbelief, realizing that her suspicions had been correct all along. The yogurt pictured in the advertisement was identical to the one she had seen at Junwoo's house last time, and if there was only one Agoma in the neighborhood who ran such a business, it could only be that same woman. At that moment, she remembered Sohi and all the conversations she had previously had with her. The realization hit her sharply. She concluded that it must indeed be Sohi, and she began to understand that she had underestimated the woman. She had thought Sohi looked innocent and naive, but now it seemed clear that Sohi was actually far sharper and more capable than she appeared. On the other side, at his place, Junwoo was lying on his bed and trying to call Sohi. His phone's automated service kept announcing that the number could not be reached and instructing him to leave a message after the tone. Frustrated, he tossed his phone aside, muttering that she wasn't answering because they were probably having a major fight at home. It made sense to him now, especially since he had openly told Sunga that he and Sohi once shared a special relationship. Junwoo admitted to himself that he had never intended for things to escalate this far. The whole situation belonged to the past, something he regretted deeply and something he had wanted to erase from his memory. But now, he no longer felt the same way. As he replayed everything in his mind, he remembered Hyunchul warning him to stay away from his mother. He thought bitterly about everything Hyunchul had done to him that day, and how Sohi's apology had ultimately sparked his determination for revenge. He felt a dark resolve forming within him as he told himself that he would show them this time. The mother whom they treasured so much, he would make her his woman and leave them both confused and unsettled by it. He imagined making them feel lost and powerless, and he believed Sohi would eventually fall for him again. Lost in his spiraling thoughts, He was startled when his phone suddenly began ringing. Assuming it must be Sohi, he grabbed it immediately. But when he looked at the screen, he was stunned. It wasn't Sohi calling him, it was Sunga. On the other side of the street, Sunga stood alone, her posture tense and alert, as if she were waiting for someone important. A thin wisp of smoke curled from the cigarette in her hand. She appeared lost in thought for a moment, scanning the surroundings with a mixture of impatience and caution, before her eyes fixed on the approaching figure of Junwoo. When he finally appeared in front of her, his expression a mix of curiosity and irritation, he immediately questioned the reason she had called him out at such an unusual hour. He suggested, somewhat teasingly, that it was unlikely she had summoned him merely to see his face. Sunga's gaze sharpened, and she addressed him with a tone that was both firm and incredulous. She asked if he truly intended to get involved with them ever again, hinting at how dangerous and reckless his previous actions had seemed. She confessed almost bitterly that if she were in his position, she would feel nothing but anger and would make a point never to come near them again. She admitted her confusion at his behavior, how he had chosen to speak about them behind their backs, and even worse, had approached her mother personally. In her eyes, such actions bordered on madness, and she could not comprehend the reasoning behind them. Junwoo, however, was impatient with the tension. He interrupted her, urging her to speak directly and get to the point. He reminded her that he had not come here to receive a lecture or to be chastised, and he had come solely to understand the reason she had summoned him. Sunga's eyes narrowed slightly, and with a calm yet commanding tone, she declared that since he insisted, she would be clear. She warned him never to meet or contact her mother again, making it evident that she was unsure of his intentions whenever he approached Sohi. She referenced his previous pranks and disruptive behavior, emphasizing that her words were not mere threats, but a final warning. She instructed him not to cause further trouble by inserting himself unnecessarily into her family's life, and asked pointedly whether he understood the gravity of her warning. Junwoo, standing with his usual composure, responded that he had no intention of complying and questioned the reason he should. He reminded her of their previous conversation, during which he had already expressed his closeness to Sohei, and asked whether she wanted him to elaborate further. Then, without hesitation, he admitted that he genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. This confession hit Sunga like a sudden blow. Shock overtook her, and she instinctively grabbed him by the collar, her voice rising with anger as she accused him of having lost his mind. He struggled slightly to free himself, but remained calm, pointing out the illogical nature of her accusations. He argued that she was implying he, a young man, should only have interest in young women, yet he had chosen to be close to an older woman who already had 2 children, Hyunchul and herself, which, according to him, defied conventional logic. Sunga's voice wavered with disbelief as she insisted that there was no possible way he could speak such outrageous things with such a straight face. Junwoo's expression softened slightly, though his tone remained firm. He told her that she might assume he was joking, but he was entirely serious. He had genuine feelings for Sohei, he insisted, and there was no denying it. Regardless of anyone's opinions or societal expectations, he found her interference in his personal life excessive and unwarranted. He smirked at her, a slow, provoking curl of his lips that made it clear he had no intention of backing down. In a tone with mockery, he questioned whether she was interfering simply because Sohi was her mother. He told her that this fact meant nothing to him, emphasizing that it was irrelevant that she happened to be Sohi's daughter, because she was hardly close to her. He went on to point out with deliberate cruelty that she had never truly spent time with her mother, not once going out with her for anything meaningful, and that her family system was so tangled and distant that it was practically broken. Frustration and disbelief took over her expression as she told him he was completely out of his mind, but he refused to retreat. He insisted there was no point in arguing, because she could not deny the truth he had pointed out. When she angrily ordered him to shut up, he still continued provoking her, pretending to understand her reaction while simultaneously pushing her even further. With a dark, mocking laugh, he commented that it was unbelievably strange that the same people who used to bully him and beat him in school were now confronting him because of their own mother. He took it a step further, saying that it would be very cool if he ended up becoming their father, as if the thought amused him. Those words hit Sunga, and her anger peaked instantly. She warned him in a trembling, furious voice that if he dared to speak like that again, even once, she would truly kill him. But he still didn't stop. Instead, he challenged her more boldly. telling her she could not do anything alone and that all she ever knew was how to call Hyunchul to beat him up. He told her to go ahead and beat him, claiming violence was the only thing she and her brother were capable of. He continued fearlessly, breathing heavily but standing his ground. He warned that he would report both of them if they tried anything, and once he did, their whole family would be ruined. He said she shouldn't assume he was afraid or that he would ever give up on Sohi. He made it clear that nothing they did would push him away. No matter the kind of situations or obstacles they threw in his path, he would not stop going after her mother. He declared that in the end, the only ones who would appear foolish or strange were the two of them, and eventually even Sohei would take his side. Hearing all this, Sunga finally asked him if he was done. Her voice had a quiet edge to it now, as though she had moved past shock into something colder. The question seemed to catch him off guard, and he asked about her words. She then looked directly into his eyes and asked whether he had done the cardio training with her mother. Her question barely fazed him. Instead, he casually told her that she should have asked earlier, and then calmly confirmed that yes, they had done it. That was the final blow. Without hesitation, she punched him hard across the face. The force of the hit sent him staggering and dropping to the ground. Her fury exploded as she began shouting at him, accusing him of being pathetic, saying he had nothing better to do than chase after a woman like her mother, and that he had no right to behave in such a twisted manner. He told her to stop immediately, but blood was already dripping from his nose, staining the ground. His voice shook, whether from pain or from the restraint he was struggling to maintain, and he warned that he wouldn't be able to hold back anymore if she kept going. The moment she stepped closer again, he shoved her away with all the frustration that had been building up. She fell to the ground, scraping her palms on the rough pavement, but she didn't even flinch from the pain. Instead, she looked up at him with trembling fury and demanded to know the reason. Out of all people, he had chosen to be involved with her mother. She asked him the reason he could have for doing something so outrageous. He glared back, his breathing heavy, and told her to learn her place. He warned her that if she continued behaving like this, he would end up hurting her too. Then suddenly, as if her emotions snapped into something wild and uncontrollable, she grabbed him and kissed him. The act was so sudden, so completely unexpected that he froze. Junwoo pushed Sunga away gently but firmly, telling her that she did not need to act in such a way. She stood up without responding, her expression unreadable, and began walking off. He called out to her, asking where she was going and urging her to stop, but she ignored him entirely. Instead, she started running away, her pace quick and determined, leaving him sitting there in complete silence, feeling both helpless and bewildered. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, unable to process the rapidly unfolding events. He felt the weight of confusion pressing down on him, each moment with her seeming more unpredictable than the last. After a while, Junwoo returned home, still replaying the incident in his mind. He tended to his injuries, carefully applying bandages to his wounds, and poured himself a soda, hoping for a brief moment of comfort. As he sipped, his thoughts drifted relentlessly over the events that had just taken place. Everything had happened so fast that he barely had time to react, and he found himself questioning every gesture, every word, every expression Sunga had shown. He admitted to himself that he had no way of understanding her thoughts or predicting her actions, that she was a puzzle that defied all his assumptions. He reflected on the Sunga he knew, the one who was cold, calculating, and sharp. That was the image he had always carried in his mind, and he had never imagined her expressing anything different. Yet, earlier, the way she had looked at him had been entirely unlike anything he had ever experienced. Feeling mentally and physically drained, he muttered to himself that it was best to rest for now, if only to regain some clarity. Suddenly, Yunji appeared here, and he was taken aback to see her appear so unexpectedly. She smiled, a trace of relief in her eyes, and expressed how happy she was to finally meet him. She admitted that it had been incredibly difficult just to catch even a glimpse of him and asked where he had been all this time. There was a warmth in her voice, tinged with longing, as she told him how much she had missed him, acknowledging that it had been a considerable time since their last encounter. He could not help but question her presence. She responded, half amused and half serious, that she did not understand the reason he seemed confused. She reminded him that she was the yogurt delivery lady, here on the pretext of delivering yogurt, of course. Junwoo laughed softly at her words, the tension easing slightly, but she persisted, asking the reason he seemed to have forgotten her after interacting with another delivery lady. Her words were teasing, yet there was an undercurrent of genuine curiosity and expectation. For a brief moment, Junwoo frowned, his thoughts tangled in confusion. She noticed the change and continued, explaining that she had not intended to bring it up, but she had seen a different yogurt brand at his house the last time she visited. It seemed to her that he had something he was keeping from her, something he had not yet revealed. She suggested that they go inside first, implying that there was much to discuss and perhaps more to understand once they were in a more private setting. Once inside the house, without exchanging many words, they began performing a cardio session together. The following morning, after completing their cardio training, Yunji was preparing to leave. As she turned to Junwoo, she spoke cautiously, hinting at something he might not know. She explained that she knew about that particular Ajuma, the woman who worked in the neighborhood. Yunji described her as someone who appeared innocent and pure on the surface, but assured him that this impression was misleading. She asked Junwoo whether he truly felt good about her tone laced with concern. Junwoo remained seated, reflecting on the recent events with a hint of disbelief. He admitted that he had been pursued or confronted by multiple women, all due to the complications involving Kang So-hye, and he found the whole situation completely absurd. Meanwhile, on the other side, Sunga's frustration reached a peak. In a sudden outburst, she threw all the yogurt boxes that Sohi had delivered onto the floor. Sohei, standing behind her, watched the scene unfold in utter shock. She demanded to know the reason behind Sunga's actions, her voice a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Sunga, her anger barely contained, told Sohei that she should have quit the yogurt delivery job immediately. Sohei responded, perplexed, saying that she did not understand Sunga's words and demanded clarification, asking the reason she was acting in such a reckless manner. Sunga, her tone sharp and resolute, questioned whether Sohi had not already realized the consequences of her work. She accused her mother of unintentionally giving Junwoo the impression that he had a chance with her, simply because of the nature of her job. Sunga's words grew harsher as she told Sohi that she should have acted her age, expressing her embarrassment at her mother's behavior. The word embarrassment hit Sohi like a lightning bolt. She was completely taken aback, unable to comprehend that her own daughter could address her in such a manner. Her voice trembled as she scolded Sunga, insisting that she should never speak to a parent that way, and ordering her to come over immediately. Meanwhile, Hyunshul, who was in another room, overheard the heated exchange. As he listened to the argument unfold, his thoughts darkened. He contemplated that Junwoo seemed to be courting danger, and in his mind he resolved that he would ensure that Junwoo's recklessness did not go unpunished. Hyo Young-ho had been sitting in front of his computer, watching some red movies, when suddenly someone appeared behind him. He was taken completely by surprise to see that it was Hyunshul who had come to his house. Young-ho remarked that he had arrived at the worst possible time. Hyunshul, calling him a blabbermouth, asked how he had been. Hyunshul then sat down on the chair in front of the computer, observing Young-ho's screen, and commented that he was still holed up in his corner, watching red movies, and that he had over 1,000 videos accumulated. He added that Young-ho must have truly gone crazy to still be spending his lazy days watching such videos, and joked that he must still be engaged in his battle card. Young-ho asked the reason he was actually there. Hyunshul responded that they should get straight to the point. He explained that he had recently heard a rumor circulating the neighborhood that the yogurt delivery lady had been targeting students who lived alone, supposedly to make them regular customers, and that she offered special services along with the deliveries. Hyunshul noted that believing such a rumor would be rather foolish, and he then mentioned Junwoo in a slightly awkward context. Hyunshul continued, saying that Junwoo had apparently been making advances toward his mother, who worked at a yogurt company, and that he assumed Junwoo must have heard this rumor from a certain blabbermouth. He added that Young-ho was definitely the one who had told Junwoo about the rumor. Young-ho, shocked, asked the reason Hyunshul thought it was him, insisting vehemently that it was not, and swearing that he had nothing to do with it. Hyunshul told Young-ho that he seemed to be quite popular in the local community and that he had even earned the nickname Pink Pig. He added that, according to the community bulletin board, the yogurt delivery ladies often discussed the neighborhood gossip, and there was one delivery lady in particular who tended to go overboard. Hyunshul accused Young-ho of posting about her on the board, despite claiming it wasn't him, and remarked that by denying it so vehemently, Young-ho was essentially asking for trouble. Young-ho tried to explain himself, saying that it had all started with Junwoo. He insisted that Junwoo had first spread the rumor and had even come to him one day to talk about it. Young-ho claimed that he had only posted on the board for fun, treating it as a joke because the rumor itself was so absurd. He swore that everything that had happened since then was a direct consequence of that initial situation, not any deliberate attempt on his part. Hyunshul, however, scolded him, reminding him that from the past until now, Young-ho tended to expose people's secrets. He brought up high school when Young-ho had told him about the relationship between Junwoo and Sunga, as if Hyunchul hadn't known about it already. Hyunchul accused him of creating unnecessary drama back then, and now of ousting Junwoo again, suggesting that Young-ho must be his number one fan. He started laughing and warned Young-ho that if he didn't give him Junwoo's address immediately, it would be as if he had a death wish. Afterwards, Hyunchul went to Junwoo's house. When Junwoo opened the door, Hyunchul pushed him aside slightly and asked how he had been, apologizing briefly for the intrusion. Looking around the room, he remarked that the place wasn't bad and casually asked if Junwoo knew the reason for his visit. He reassured Junwoo that he didn't intend to say much and that he was only there to punish him physically and then leave. Hyunchul asked if Junwoo understood the situation fully, then immediately began beating him. The attack was harsh and unrelenting, leaving Junwoo battered and in pain. After a while, Hyunchul finally left, and Junwoo, injured, lay on his bed, struggling to call Sohi. She didn't answer, and Junwoo couldn't help but think that maybe she was angry with him. He wondered the reason she wasn't picking up and felt a growing sense of anxiety, unsure of his actions. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Sohei was lying in her own bed, looking asleep after taking her medicine, completely unaware of Junwoo's calls. Back at Junwoo's home, Sunga appeared at the door unexpectedly. Junwoo, still recovering from the attack, looked at her and asked the reason she was there, curiosity and concern mixing in his voice.